I went to Fordham. I talked to him, I could stay here, so if I'm in my youth. So they bought it.
How long were you at Foxconn?
The two on the summer
Okay,
and then.
anytime.
All right, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Why do people do that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, we have announcements. Checks over 25,000. We had one for Those Guys Landscaping for $28,235, part of the Barney Brook basket installation wall mitigation FEMA project, and that was from the general fund. Axon Enterprise Inc. Body Cam annual maintenance license contract from the general fund, $36,975.64. We also had Pacific Trans Global Construction Corp., which was the Senior Citizen Center roof and parapet project out of the capital fund, $68,844.15. Another one to Pacific Trans Global Construction Corp., which was the Senior Citizen Center heat pump and boiler removal project out of the capital fund for $72,671.69. And then lastly, Those Guys Landscaping, Those Guys Landscaping, Upper Barney Brook, Yvonne basket installation wall mitigation out of the general fund, $25,532.82. And then A. Borelli Mechanical, the Daikin equipment for the senior center from the capital fund, $65,911. Next is the Veterans Day services, which will be on Saturday, November 11th at 10:45 a.m. at Memorial Plaza on Main Street. So again, we start at 10:45 a.m. sharp. Tomorrow is Election Day, if you needed to get a reminder of that. The Peter Early Turkey Trot is on Sunday, September 19th at 2 p.m. at Dow's Lane. I think if you sign up in advance, it's a little bit cheaper. Larry Lonke's not here to correct me. We want to schedule a public hearing to consider a local law amending the zoning code to eliminate the 5-year requirement for accessory apartments for Monday, November 20th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at Village Hall. I'll make a motion if I can have a second for that. All in favor?
Aye.
And then just a reminder, there's an upcoming ban on the gas-powered leaf blowers, which goes into effect December 16th, 2023. Next, we have some correspondence. Thomas Biaggi, he basically doesn't want us. He doesn't believe that we can have an outright ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. So he doesn't. He basically, I think I can summarize the whole letter by saying he doesn't agree with the full ban. Next is from Ann Atchison. I don't know if you wanted to speak later, or if you want, I can read your.
I could speak.
Okay, perfect. So I'll hold that. Next, we have Maria Kashkin. She read the latest communication from the village concerning the leaf blower ban. This past summer, the trustees updated the code and added additional parties who could be fined if found violating this code, as well as amending the language to include gas-powered spreaders. Anyone who I've spoken to about these changes were unaware. On October 11th, the board discussed the leaf blower ban, and one of the trustees spoke about being proactive in educating the residents about this code. In my opinion, the email sent today should have contained specific information about the changes this summer, what that means on a practical level. For example, the use of gas-powered power washers prohibited after December 16th. Typically in the spring, homeowners clean their homes, decks, patios with power washers. This needed the board's consideration on the 11th. It was also mentioned multiple times how the board gave residents 3 years to make the change. In addition to gas-powered spreaders only provides residents perhaps 4 months to make the necessary changes. If the board wants to be proactive messaging with residents, please communicate the changes made over the summer in code and what it means to be a homeowner. Not believe many understand what the gas-powered spreaders are. Finally include link to those guys. That's Maria Kashkin. I actually didn't realize that it included power washers. I thought it was only literally spreaders. So
It shouldn't include anything that's on a 2-stroke engine, and power washers are just like other gasoline engines. They don't make the pollution.
So maybe we can. That's the reason I never mentioned it, because I didn't know that, and I don't think I would.
Sprayers, not spreaders.
Yeah, sprayers, not spreaders.
Yeah, but I don't remember. I'm not sure we've got the newest pages in here.
Yeah, but it wasn't my intention to ban those, actually. So I remember the reason we added that language was because there was something that was very similar that they were worried that the police would have trouble enforcing it because they
Yeah,
wouldn't
the
be able
The
to.
police
chief
were
has, yeah.
confused by what it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
so maybe we should, before our next meeting, maybe we can, there's a follow-up for it later on, right?
Yep.
We can ask about that, because that was not my intention, so.
Yeah, and the chief just mentioned at that work session
Right.
about how they couldn't tell the difference, so we
Yeah,
just asked him.
it
what's-
seems, yeah, it seems like something, I thought it was something very specific
Yeah.
that didn't, it wasn't to me.
Yeah, I don't think it was supposed to encompass the pressure washer.
Yeah, I don't think so either, so,
Well, let me take a look at it, and maybe what you gotta do is define the term.
yeah,
Which mean, I don't remember defining it, cause I would have had to look up some definition of it, I don't remember.
right,
But I'll take
yeah, I
a
don't think we
look
did
at it.
either, and I think we just kind of took their language and like, okay,
Yeah,
Is it-
right.
Is it because the power washers, I would assume, if the power washers is used as frequently as the leaf blowers and I think the other, the sprayers that they were using, then I think we should consider that, but I think if the issue is that they're used very infrequently, then maybe that's a different issue.
yeah,
I think they're probably less noisy too.
yeah, I mean, and that's why people power wash every weekend, twice a week, if they do, God bless, but.
I don't know, everyone parks, I just wanna say, everyone parks on my street, cause we have, on my block, cause we have on Barbara Lane, that long thing, and I like never know who's blowing leaves, cause I hear it at my house, like the whole street. So whoever's blowing in the vicinity is like, literally feels like it's in my house, so,
Seems to be more and more too.
yeah, it's a lot.
How do you pronounce Dan's last name again, Larry?
Conversor,
Condesor.
I think.
Dear Mayor and Trustees, you probably saw the traffic counting devices along Broadway put out for the state DOT's Route 9 Complete Street Study. Please be aware, traffic counts are a trap. The standard practice in USA is to look at current motor vehicle counts and imagine that number or even more must be accommodated in the future. It is possible the state DOT would use these numbers as an excuse to say it is impossible to change some parts of Broadway. In reality, daily travel choices are highly flexible. People may make minute-to-minute decisions about how and when to go places based on modes available, safety, cost, time, weather, traffic disruptions, parking, etc. Plus, so many people drive because we have treated abundant roads and parking for use at no or little charge while providing camp facilities for walking, cycling, using wheelchairs, riding the bus. In short, plan for the traffic you want, not the traffic you have. It's really Dan. I know Dan's been, you probably know Dan from the committee, but he's been very involved. And he lives in Sleepy Hollow, but he's been very involved in all the villages. For last, we have 2 long letters from Chris Lando, which we discussed at length at the last meeting, and Chris discussed at length at the last meeting, but he wanted to make sure that they were published for everyone to read. So Chris, they are there. So public comment, Ann, did you want to go first? Since you let me skip your letter.
Oh, okay, so I may be a new face to many of you, but not all of you. I used to come regularly and have my, put my 2 cents into everyone's business. So my name's Ann Atchison. I live,
Active participant.
I live at 18 South Dutcher Street. You live across the street from me, I believe.
Right, yeah.
And so since COVID, I haven't been back to comment in public, but I needed to do it one more time just for Brian so that he could limit me to 3 minutes.
I'll give you 4 tonight.
But basically what prompted the letter, and I realized when I read it again, it probably made no sense to anyone but me, but what prompted the letter was I watched the meeting where you were talking about the changes to the planning process and about the advisory committee or the idea of that architectural review becomes an advisory body, and you were talking about the ECB. And it hasn't been anything for 10 years and I felt like I just had to say that back in the day when I was on the ECB, it was a very, very important part of municipal discussions. And it's only because of the ECB that we have a landscape architect that's part of the planning process now. So yeah, we are dinosaurs, but we were very active and very vocal back in the day when there was no such thing as tree protection at construction sites, and people would cut down every single tree in their property without any qualms at all. So just like the historic district, it took a while, but now it feels normal to all you guys. But I just needed to put in one word for the dinosaurs who were on the ECB. And, it was just that that being on an advisory committee is even worse or is worse from the personal point of view than being on a board, because all you're doing is advising. So you have to read all the thousands of pages of planning board applications. You have to pore over the blueprints and try to see, what is the grading and what is this and what is that. And you have to have some amount of expertise so that you can do that. You have to spend just as much time other than being at the meetings as the planning board members do, because you have to read everything that they have. And plus, 9 times out of 10, at least back then, most of the planning board hadn't actually read the thing. So you always felt like you were one step ahead of them to begin with, because at least you had pored over it so that you could, speak for the trees. And then when you go to the meeting and you say your piece and they ignore you, and then you go back and do the whole thing again. And so being on an advisory board and doing it well is difficult. And so what I wanted to say at the end of the letter is just be aware before you take away actual boards that have a decision-making process and vote and all that kind of stuff, that an advisory board can be very easily derailed by a personality or a point of view. So if you get a strong voice on an advisory board, that's all you're going to hear, because it's an advisory board and the rest of the people aren't going to say, well, I don't agree with that. It's just whoever speaks the loudest. So it might be a thing to think about before you make the only board that makes any decisions about anything that gets planned in this village, to think about that and try to insert some kind of method that they're advising, but they're actually forced to be listened to. So they're not engineers and they're not lawyers, and they're not, some of them might not be architects. So the planning board won't consider them to be professionals, but they still probably have a lot to say and a lot to contribute. So that was just my 2 cents about that. And I'll put in 2 cents about the spreader thing, which made no sense to me. I looked it up. There is no such thing.
I think it's a sprayer.
Sprayer.
It was just a
Sprayer.
typo.
And-
What is this better?
In her letter.
It said it in
Oh, in the
Maria's
letter,
letter,
yeah, no,
yeah.
it's.
So I did look up power washers, and for one thing, some of the best power washers are electric, so you wouldn't really need to worry about it. And all the rest of the power washers have regular gas engines. So what you're banning is the 2-stroke engine that mixes oil and gas, which is what the leaf blowers are. So that's why it would not be possible to really ban a regular gasoline engine.
Can I just ask you a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the board that you're talking about, you're talking about the environmental conservation, the conservation board?
Yeah.
Okay. Just when we talked about it, I just don't think it exists, right? They're not people named to it, or, so I just want to
It's,
understand that.
it's defunct.
It did exist.
It did
Did
exist.
exist and did good work.
Yeah.
Right.
I will actually say, it took a big, I would say, our previous engineering firm wasn't as strong as our current engineering firm. A big upgrade to our engineering firm, as well as adding a landscape architect to be able to replace it, to be honest. So, if you consider the amount of work that we get from our engineers and our landscape architects, that was filled in by a volunteer advisory board, which was a lot of work. And the timing of it, I remember, was tight because you had to get the information to the planning board before they met and stuff like that. So it was even a accelerated scale and everything. So they did a lot of great work back in the day. But I do think that since we have,
There's no reason for it. I was just wanting to.
no,
State
Historical
historical
content,
record. It having existed is why you have sustainability and you have pollinator pathways and you have a great engineering firm and you have a landscape architect all advising the village. Before, there was none of that.
Which I think is, it's just, I want to add, I think that's very important to talk about, and I think we did talk about that to an extent, right? Which was, what's a good thing is that a lot of the work that that board did was to kind of bring it to the mainstream, instead of, like, sometimes, in my own view, when things are really central and important to a village, you don't, like, sideline that or, like, only rely on volunteers, right? So to be able to have an advisory, like, volunteer board that then kind of brought it into the fabric of what we do as a village, I think is a really important contribution. So thank you from me. Wasn't familiar.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks
Good
for,
job.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming by.
Ryan.
It was like, that was like the first
That's right.
6 or 8 years of my,
That's right.
my reign. You were here a lot.
Thanks.
I'm glad you're well. Any other public comments?
Good evening, Charles Kerr, Chet Kerr. I just want to say that for the last month, members of the Housing Committee and Larry Lonke and Larry Schaffer have been involved with the Lula program at Pace Law School, where we have been looking at ideas about thinking about affordable housing. And I think we identified some areas in the lower part of Astor Street to think about it. There's some challenges to it, but we're working on it. But I just really wanted to commend Larry and Larry for putting the time in and the good thoughts and careful thinking that goes into that. And I really appreciate it. So that's all I wanted to say. So there'll be more from the Housing Committee, I think. I think we're trying to put some of our thoughts together and think about opportunities that we could do. But I just really wanted to commend Larry and Larry. So that's it.
I didn't pay Chet to say that, but I will say that.
Where's my 20 bucks?
There you go.
Larry, but not that Larry.
Only two
But-
layers.
Only 2 of the 3.
I will say the members of the Housing Committee have been great. It's actually been an enjoyable 3 meetings that we had. So it'll be fun to listen to some of the work product. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? If someone's here tonight, they're gonna be talking.
Hi. I watch the videos a lot. I know that, like, it doesn't seem like there are a lot of people who are involved in village politics, but I would consider myself to be pretty involved in terms of trying to keep track of what's happening. I watch on Facebook Live. I also do a lot of reading of the local newspapers. So when this whole village bond thing went down, it wasn't brand new to me because I read about it in 2022 in the newspaper. I think what was surprising was the fact that it was going to be on the ballot so quickly. And I decided to come to say a couple of things before the election because I didn't speak last week. There was a room full of people who wanted to share their perspective. I think that what sometimes when you hear like a accusation coming from participants, it certainly wasn't everybody, but we know of the people who had more of an accusatory tone. It's coming from a place of not feeling trust, like kind of feeling blindsided almost. And I'm like aware of the fact that even standing up here and like what I'm about to say might come off as just kind of being accusatory. And I don't want you to take it that way. It's not that I'm accusing anyone of being nefarious, but I do consider myself to be informed and aware and still felt blindsided. And so, you know, today I'm sitting on Main Street. I hear gunshots for the first time ever living in Irvington. I live on Main Street. I've never heard shots. All day I'm hearing them. I hear it's going to happen all day tomorrow. I think it's kind of interesting timing that the day before the election where we're going to vote whether or not we want to have an indoor firing range on Main Street, then all of a sudden for the first time in 3 years, I hear gunshots. I don't know what they were shooting. I just think that the timing is strange. So as I'm saying this, there's nothing you can say to me to respond. Of course, everyone's going to say there was nothing nefarious, right? But I just think it's odd. And I think what it's showing is a lack of trust. And the lack of trust is coming from a place of a lack of transparency. Because if all of the effort that I see with these ginormous, that's a scientific term, ginormous signs all over Irvington, for the first time, I've never seen signs this big. Ginormous signs, lawn signs that are as tall as my 6-year-old. I don't know who's paying for them. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know if it's the firefighters paying for it out of their budget or if the village PR firm. What it's showing me is that if that amount of effort and energy was put into getting the word out 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, if this has been talked about for 12 years, then I would assume that that same amount of effort that is going into this marketing campaign that's happening right now could have gone into the conversation with the community. What you're hearing from us right now is a plea to be involved, to have our voices heard, to want to be a part of the solution, to want for the 2018 master plan, strategic plan, which I was not even here for, to be listened to, because apparently that did incorporate a lot of voices. And it's a request to not blindside residents a month before the election, to find out that it's on the ballot without any sort of community involvement and voice. And when that happens, you're going to get these reactions because our amygdalas have been triggered. So I'm saying this the day before our election because no matter what happens tomorrow, no matter what direction it goes in, I hope you just are hearing this as a request from everyone who came forward last week and who keeps speaking out to want to be involved, because we want to come up with a solution for our firefighters. They deserve to have facilities that are safe, and we appreciate them and we support them, but this is not it. So we need to talk about it as a community, and that's all I wanted to share before the
I'll
election.
just say two quick things. One, if it doesn't pass, I hope you will be out, starting on Wednesday. And two, if it does pass, there's still a ton of work to be done. The way it looks, the way things are actually used. Again, if it gets voted yes tomorrow, we don't go to the bond company and take $18.2 million and start construction. This is literally like the first step. So
So then you're saying you're going to incorporate our voice into
100%.
what it looks like, what goes into that
100%.
building, whether or not we expand to the right or expand to the left or move it somewhere else, like what you're saying.
I don't know about expand to the left, expand to the right. And again, but everyone keeps saying we should look somewhere else. That's the one part where I haven't heard any suggestions where it should go. And I feel like that's one thing we've looked at extensively, because it's been something that we've tried to find other locations for a really long time. So, if people have ideas, if someone came back and said, we have an idea that this is a great spot, we would definitely listen to it. I mean, I'm not going to be on the board anymore, but from day one, we wanted input, and we did have meetings, but it's very hard. And I understand that 1 month only, but if we had started this in, June, it would have been 6 months. It would have been like, you guys did this before the summer. If we did it last year, it would have been like, you don't even know what you're talking about. You don't have the plans. Like, it's always hard. So I'm hopeful that if it does get defeated, or if it doesn't, people will work on this, because it's not, that's not a rendering is just that, a rendering. That's not what the building's going to look like. And I think that's one of these things, like, when people are so focused on, like, you're going to pay $300 for someone to, pay for their phone. That's not what we're saying. That's not definite. That's like, this is an idea. This is it's a detailed idea, but it's really just that. It's not a final thing. Like if I was still in office, I never would have said the final product would look anything like that, because I couldn't stand the way it looked. The fire department part was fine. It was the building next to it I didn't really like. So, I mean, there's going to be an involvement either way. And if it starts fresh, then I think there'll be a slightly different debate, because, the debate's going to be, do you want to spend $14-15 million on just the firehouse versus 18 on all these other things?
Yes.
Because to me, getting the entrance to the theater would have been phenomenal, right back to 1903. People talk about historical things. To me, you can't get much more historical than restoring that. It would have been a great project, but there's a lot of things that have to happen to make that possible. So I think there's going to be a ton of public input. I think now maybe people are paying attention to it. Hopefully they'll pay attention to other things as well. And the last thing about the shooting, the timing is awkward or unfortunate, but it was actually the last time it was scheduled was the day after the Hamas attacks, and they had to push it back. So if they had asked me if this was good timing, I would have said wait 2 more days. But this was when they decided in their own bubble to do the shooting. So I know I certainly wasn't asked. I don't know if you were asked, Larry, on when they were scheduled.
No, they told us today and we posted about it.
Yeah, because the only thing we heard was that they had posted actually that they were going to do it the day after the Hamas attacks. They thought it was inappropriate to be having gunfire in those days. So this is when they picked the next day.
I want to say a couple of things. I do want to say that and I said this the last time we met, I think it's good to have all this community engagement, and I think that we should, as a board, think about how that continues and how we incorporate people. And I think including, in my own view, to the finances of this, right? Like, I think to have a good relationship with the community, we need to have transparency there. And I certainly want to commit to making sure that we have transparency in the finances, because I think it's very important. I heard a lot of mistrust, and I think the way you deal with mistrust is to be transparent. So, I mean, I think this board will be committed to being very transparent there. I think it's very important in this community. And I will say that today I was on Main Street, and I've lived in Irvington for 12 years. I have never heard the gunshot. So that took me completely by surprise. Like, I live on Riverview Road, and Ed Marin asked me in that meeting last week whether I hear gunshots in my house all the time. And honestly, like, I literally have never until today. And I kind of had a mini panic attack. I was like picking up my bulldog from Art Expo, and I was like I literally was like, oh my God, like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So I think we have to, they did tell us. In fact, I had emails with Frank today about that, but it was to me too, sort of like, I was like, I think the word I'm going to say is I was like shocked, because I had never heard it before, and I was forewarned that it was happening. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have a lot of thinking to do about that. But
I went to an important point you said that I wanted to address about the PR firm. PR firm's job was not to convince people to vote yes, and they are not in any way involved in any campaign to get people to vote yes. In fact, if you look at the, I'm sure it's a public document, the prospectus from the PR firm.
Their contract, yeah.
Yeah, it explicitly says that their job is not to try and get the bond passed or to convince people to bond. Their only job was to get factual information to the voters. And they had actually come to us originally with the idea of it being, and we said no. And said, well, that's what other villages have done. And we said, that's not what we want. We're not trying to convince anyone of anything. Your job is to get factual information out there. We want to get factual information. So I promise you that the PR firm is not behind the vote yes. And I promise you that the board is not behind that. The village is not taking a position on this. We have all said, all 5 of us at different meetings, not just one of us, that we have said, we think that there are these problems that exist. This is a solution that was put together to address those problems, and we think that it is a competent, good way to address those problems, so that we're bringing it out to the voters to decide whether the voters think it's worth paying for that. So there's no one on the board advocating for yes. There's certainly not the PR firm advocating for yes. It would be against their contract with us if they did that, because that's not why we hired them. They were hired to get factual information out. So as far as who's behind the yes campaign, I don't know, and it's nothing to do directly with the village government or the village government's PR.
But I would say too that there's obviously was a failure to get the information out. I mean, your perception is not wrong. It's
I'm not
that-
defending
yeah.
the PR firm.
No.
I'm saying the role. I was only talking about the role of the PR firm.
Yeah, and maybe we should have said a year ago when we did this, that's when we got the PR.
Yeah.
We got and I think the suggestion to go to have like a table at the farmer's market was a good one.
Yeah.
We give it the PTSA, and I mean, it's something we fail at all the time, is getting people to pay attention until the end. So, I mean, I think that's the thing we've probably taken the most notes on. Having a special meeting just for that probably made sense. We could have done a half dozen of those, over the last year. We had mentioned in meetings, like meeting with co-op boards or organizations like neighborhood organizations like Spiro Park or POA, and those didn't happen. And I think a lot of that it was rolled out later than we thought. So that definitely was on us.
it's a good lesson,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I think it's a good lesson. I think it's a good lesson. And I also feel like I feel like that lesson isn't lost, right? Like, I don't think, what I'm hearing from you, Angie, is like, even going forward, and I've had a lot of conversations with people, I think we keep saying we don't have to go, like, borrow the whole 18 million. What I hear is like lack of transparency. What I want to say is, like, we want to be as transparent. We need to be as transparent as we can be. And, we want to involve, the residents as much as possible, because I think it's important. It's a significant project. It is the biggest project, right, that the village board has ever undertaken. And therefore, I think, I don't think, I said it before, I feel like, what, we tried and we had good intentions, but what is it, the road, gosh.
Road
like, damn it,
development, good
I'm
intentions.
really bad at like, whatever sayings, but the road, I hear Jorge at home being like
Road,
rolling his
yeah.
eyes. Road to hell
Yeah,
is paved with good
intentions, yeah.
intentions, thank you.
In fact, I just had, it's so funny because the things was connected. You mentioned you read in the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Asked her about it. If it's the article I'm thinking of, I'm quoted in that article as saying that we have to be fully transparent. And I'm quoted in the article as saying that I was opposed to putting any number on the ballot other than the 18 million. I think that was a late article. It may not have been a 2022 article, it may have been a different one. Because we should be completely transparent and say, well, we don't think it's gonna cost this much, but this is, if nothing goes right, this is how much it's gonna cost, and that's what we have to be out there with. So transparency, again, I'm not saying that we succeeded or anything like that. What I'm saying is we have been trying, and I am on the record in the press as saying that we want to be as transparent as possible from the time this started, you know.
And I
Thank
hope
you.
that means, right, like not just getting to this point, but like I hear from the residents, like continuing, right? We're gonna
Yeah.
have to continue to learn the lessons we learned maybe the hard way, right? That we tried to like, we took a path, we debated the path, and we really tried to say like how can we get the most people involved or in it, you know, sort of like knowing what's happening. But okay, good intentions, it didn't work, right? It did not work. So therefore, okay. But now I feel like we're fully engaged. You know,
And people are
I
eager to
think-
find a solution. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the thing.
Yes,
So
and I think now it's a good thing, right? Like all the people who are involved, I think let's stay engaged as a community, because this is still, if it goes forward in this iteration or some other iteration, will still be the biggest project that our village undertakes. So I feel like we have a lot of smart people with a lot of opinions, you know, that's always not so easy to like reconcile, but I think it will be a good thing in any event. And I think we still want to, you know, we are a small community, we still want to build the bridge, right? Like we don't, you know, it's like in negotiations, everyone's going to be a little bit unhappy, but you definitely don't want like happy and completely not happy, right? We have to kind of, I think, try to find a middle ground and kind of move forward.
Yeah, just to add to that just a little bit, but yeah, we try to be transparent. We learned a lot, obviously, but I mean, all these decisions, like, do we have the PR firm or not? Like, should we try and make it for the ballot or not? I mean, that was all done in public at public meetings. You know, we were trying to keep it. I mean, everything is transparent. All the meetings are public. Everything we talk about is in public, including, I think, you know, Larry was telling us like, hey, I'm worried we're not getting enough information out. Let's hire a PR firm, and we talked about that, and that's how we got to do that. But of course, people complain that you're spending money on a PR firm to get information out. So it's like a tricky balancing act, but we definitely learn a lot. But I just wanted to say, if anyone has any other ideas, I know we've heard a lot, but about how to, you know, get more people involved, be more transparent, you know, I'm sure we'd all love to hear that, because that's our goal.
regardless of which direction it goes tomorrow, I think you have enough people here who are going to give you ideas about how to do that. I think you have an active group of people who really want to make sure that everyone has a voice. So we'll just continue to engage either way. And it does mean that your time, I know, is ticking, but you are going to have to spend Saturday morning time doing open houses with different renderings and having people come in and vote and all of those things that that get people excited about plans. Thank you.
And even like the rushing it out to the ballot was a conscious decision because we wanted the most people to vote. Because we thought if we did it, if we said, well, let's take another 3 months, you know, we'll get back from in September, we'll bring it up, and then we'll have it on the ballot in pick a month, June, May, whatever. The 200 people would show up total, and we wanted as many people to vote as possible. So
As we said, we wanted it on election day, so you get the most number of people voting. It's not just a small group of people voting either way.
I feel like
Even just
lots of
having-
people are engaged,
Yeah.
so that's helpful. I think that's helpful.
So should we put any more public comment? Otherwise, we'll quickly do the consent agenda, and then we'll go back to the discussion, which I don't know if there'll be much, but anyone at home there?
No.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, except if there's questions. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion of the upcoming Firehouse Municipal Complex bond
Mhm.
referendum. I think we just had that. Is there anyone else, Larry?
Chat, anything?
Chat, yeah?
Now I
Mayor.
want to talk for an hour.
Yeah. Mary Ann, you want to talk about it?
If you can get, you have to do it in 3-minute intervals 20 times.
Chapters.
Careful what you wish for.
Otherwise, we'll move to the approval of an intermunicipal agreement with the Irvington Union Free School District to create a firehouse. So-
I was like, what?
Backdoor today.
What is that? No, it's not what I saw on the agenda.
You want to explain this, Larry?
Yeah, sure. So this is
It's for the Nature Center program.
right for the VIP program, that the Nature Center runs for students in the Irvington schools. This is the same agreement on the same terms that we had last year with the school district.
Excellent. Yeah, and this is a program that I know we take a lot of pride in. It's, I think it's special needs kids
Mhm.
that get to go up to the Nature Center and are involved in all different types of programming. And from the pictures and from people that have gone and seen it, everyone loves it. The people that run the Nature Center and as well as the students that participate. So we're really glad that we could work this out again. I think it's important. I know CJ does an unbelievable job. CJ Riley does an unbelievable job with students. And I think he gets as much out of it as them. But we're lucky to have the program both ways. Resolved to approve the intermunicipal agreement with the Irvington Union Free School District for the VIP program from October 10th, 2023 through June 30, 2024, and to authorize the village administrator to execute the agreement. I'll make a motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is an amendment to an intermunicipal agreement with Westchester County regarding a mutual aid and rapid response plan.
Okay, yeah, actually I can't add too much to this, other than this is an ongoing agreement that the police department has been involved in, and it governs how mutual aid happens throughout the county, and the police response to that. It lays out the kind of the nitty gritty of how that all happens and who's responsible and insurances and all the other information. And in this case, I'm sorry. So the amendment, the specific amendment involves a plan that the Westchester County came up with to install radios throughout the various jurisdictions. So this amendment specifically deals with that. And so it's a shared services basically, but they'll be providing radios that can be used for interoperability amongst the agencies. And that's what this agreement covers.
We're finally learning the lessons of 9/11.
Yeah, right, 20 years later, yep.
Any questions? Otherwise, resolved to approve an amendment to the intermunicipal agreement with Westchester County regarding mutual aid and rapid response plan for the period July 31st, 2020 through July 30th, 2025, which has been reviewed by the village attorney, and to authorize the village administrator to execute said agreement. I'll make a motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is renewal of shared service intermunicipal agreement for the 2023 New York State DEC grant for recycling app.
Right, so this is the Westchester Recycles, I think is what the app's called, but it's what people use to determine what day their recycling is picked up, or their sanitation, or it's also used to identify how certain items can be disposed of, the proper way to dispose of certain items. And so that app has been utilized in a shared services way with, I believe, 18 or 19 other communities in Westchester. And layered on top of that, all of that is organized by Sustainable Westchester as kind of the hub for that app. But layered on top of that there is a cost to it for each of the communities. And the village of Tarrytown's taken the lead on behalf of the other 18 or 19 communities to file a DEC reimbursement for that cost for all of the communities. So there's a 50% grant that's available and has been made available the last several years that we've been using it. So that's what this agreement particularly covers, that it's our ability to not just participate in using the app, but also receiving a 50% reimbursement. So we're not talking about large dollars here. It's a $3,000 annual fee, and you get about $1,500 back. So probably took me longer to explain it than what it's worth, but that's it.
I'll have that.
Resolved to approve the renewal of a shared service intermunicipal agreement for the year 2023 with the New York State DEC grant for recycling app, and to authorize the village administrator to execute said agreement. I'll make a motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is obviously intermunicipal agreement night. Next one is Westchester County for mobile radios for police vehicles. This, I think, is also what you're referring to, Larry.
Yeah, so there was one was amending the rapid response plan, but the other was to the actual distribution and how, the functioning of the radios and installation and all of that. So that's what this
Yes.
the second agreement is about.
Resolved to approve the intermunicipal agreement with the County of Westchester to provide mobile radios for police vehicles from January 1, 2024 to December 31, 2029, and to authorize the village administrator to execute the agreement. I'll make a motion, if I could have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is renewal of the prisoner transportation reimbursement agreement with Westchester County.
So, well, it's just that. When the police department transports prisoners back and forth to the county jail, that's a county function that the county would be responsible for, but the local agencies are actually doing it. So the county reimburses us a certain amount for the cost of transporting prisoners over to the county jail. It's the best way I can describe it. I don't know the actual numbers. I don't think it's a lot of money.
Excuse me.
But again, this is an ongoing agreement.
Yeah.
This is just an extension for 2 years, essentially.
Whereas the village of Irvington continues to transfer prisoners to and from the county jail and wishes to receive reimbursement for a portion of the overtime costs associated with that activity. And whereas the village previously approved an intermunicipal agreement with the county, and whereas the parties wish to continue this agreement from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022, whereas this agreement has been reviewed and approved by the police chief and village attorney, now therefore be it resolved to approve the prisoner transportation reimbursement agreement between the village of Irvington and Westchester County for the period of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024, and to authorize the village administrator to execute said agreement. I'll make a motion, if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Makes it sound like there are buses of prisoners coming daily.
Yeah, no, it's not quite that.
Reports of boards, standing committees, and officers. Trustee liaison reports. Larry, we'll start with you.
Yep, I got a short update from the building department. Said the last few weeks have been busy dealing with 3040 South Broadway. Application for the planning board are steady. Subdivision on Half Moon has brought some controversy with the neighbors, and permits and inspections are more than normal. That is it.
All right, Mitch,
I have nothing this week.
Darlene?
I have a bit. Okay. Okay. So from the police department, as everyone heard, there's firearms training. So today, 3 to 7, tomorrow, 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. So that's kind of a long time. And also then Tuesday, November 14th from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. Also, they are in the midst of their No Shave November campaign, the police department is, so you can follow them on Facebook, and there's also a GoFundMe campaign they are raising money for pediatric cancer research, so I think we should probably, if they haven't sent it, we should send it out from the village. Okay, DPW. So the DPW, they assisted the IPD with installation of yield to pedestrian signs in the crosswalks, and they removed and trimmed trees along South Buckhouse Street. Their work on the DPW building project is still active. The painting, the roof is completed. The East Sunnyside curb project has commenced, and hazardous sidewalks at East Killington Avenue are excavated and formed. I have a lot today. So from the GPTL, so in October, 12 high school students volunteered with waste management, education, and engagement at Rocktoberfest. They're hoping to be able to do food scrapping at Rocktoberfest in the future. Their climate talks are growing in popularity. Seth Godin filled the room last week with 37 RSVPs. The average attendance at these talks has been 20 people or more, and with more than 100 unique people joining overall. So they're drawing lots of people, different people from different sectors. They have, the next climate talk is going to be December 6th with Amy Larkin, a former director of Greenpeace. Dozens of people attended the EV fair on Sunday. They got great feedback. The EV club has grown to 32 members. The EV club has had 4 articles in the local paper, and they have inspired 5 new EV purchases or leases by residents, unlocking $5,000. We I guess the EV, yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because you
About the
probably know
grant
more.
program?
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now they're, Charlotte, our sustainability director, is running an EV campaign. So it's related, but not, it's not just the EV club that she has. And while the campaign's running, if we're successful in having a certain number of registrations of new EVs in the village, which the state tracks directly, if we are successful in achieving the number, which I guess is 5, although I thought there was a higher level as well. But if we do that, then the campaign is considered successful and we'll receive a $5,000 grant, which has to be used on some other energy sustainability activity, which we'll decide.
Another EV station.
Yeah, well, it could be.
Yeah, so the Climate Action Planning Committee is gonna also be meeting with the department heads next week to explore greenhouse gas mitigation strategies. IrvingtonGreen.org has a new climate section which discusses the flood study and capital drainage projects. And also as they're very active on social media, which is really the best place that I keep track of. That's kind of how I track what they do, but it's a really good place for people to go. And also IrvingtonGreen.org is really a good source of information. And then from the water department, they're reading the water meters. They finished the fall high service and low service hydrant flushing. And they've been organizing the distribution maps for scanning, which I remember going into that water department and they have all these old maps that they've been scanning. And the fall maintenance of the water department properties and building assisted with the transition of new water meter reading software. But so that's it for me.
All right.
Lots of news.
Village Administrator's report?
Just a couple items. The police, we put out a traffic alert this evening relating to a scheduled funeral at Immaculate Conception Church tomorrow. The police expect it to be well attended. There may also be officers from the MTA there because a sibling of the deceased is currently an MTA officer, so there may be some additional vehicles there. So they expect some traffic delays. They'll be there to monitor, especially parking is going to be the main issue. But our police will be there to keep track of that. Tomorrow is a couple of things tomorrow besides Election Day. It is a tree planting volunteer day. So we have a number of trees that are being planted in the Irvington Woods, and our Nature Center Director, CJ Riley, will be heading up both children and adults coming to volunteer to plant these trees throughout the woods. And that's from 10 a.m. to 12 for the first batch, and then 12 to 2 is the second shift, so to speak. So that's tomorrow. And the last is just to make mention that Teenscape, which is normally only operational in the summer, they're running an off-season trip to Boundless Adventures, and that's tomorrow. And that trip is sponsored by iAsk.
Great.
That's it.
Village Clerk Treasurer's report.
Nothing for me this week.
Village Attorney's report.
No, what?
Chet Kerr's report. Public comment?
You guys are on for another couple hours.
Review of action items.
Well, we're going to follow up on the question about sprayers and
Yes.
power washers, and also follow up and send something out about No Shave November.
Perfect. I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll.